Quite unexpectedly now, Paul slips from one image to another. Look at this text passage here in Romans 11 from verse 15 onwards, 16 onwards. He comes from the dough to the tree, from the first fruits to the roots. And we seem to be kind of mixed up. What we have to do, especially if we don't come from the land of Israel, we have to visualize these images. We have to go back in the Bible and see it. Paul was talking as somebody rooted deeply in Israel's tradition. But if we keep in mind what he's talking about, everything is actually quite clear. Paul is talking about Israel. He talks to Gentiles about God's plan with Israel and the Gentile nations. And he has always in mind the Gentiles' mission to Israel, which is not first and foremost preaching and telling the Jewish people what they should be, ought to be, and what will happen to them, but first of all, to make them jealous. So Jewish people look at us and say, oh, I would like to be like that. And then on this basis, he says, now if the first fruit is holy, you be always aware that the whole lump of dough is holy. If the root is holy, so are the branches. So he slips now over into and draws a picture of the olive tree. I would like to take you out and to show you olive trees. I would like to not just a year around show you what olive trees are, what they go through, what happens if you burn them, what happens if you cut them off and they come again, and what happens, they're very good firewood. They're actually the only firewood you can burn green because they're full of oil. I want to remind you of a few things that the olive tree in the context of the Bible is. I have here loads of Bible passages. In this case, I'm not giving you the homework to just read a passage of the Bible, but read the Bible from the beginning to the end, and you will always find olive trees. First of all, it's one of the trees of the land. It is one of the basic staple foods, one of the basic foods, one of the basis of the very existence of where you have an olive tree, you can exist. The olive tree, and now we have to imagine if Paul uses this image, what does he say? The olive tree makes full, it satisfies. But the olive tree also cleanses, also from sin. The olive tree makes bright, oil enlightens, also spiritually. It's used as cosmetics, as makeup. So we can say the olive tree makes beautiful. I don't want to take that away from you. Do it yourselves. Take the time, take a concordance, and wherever it's talking about oil, where does the oil come from? In biblical times, it comes from the olive tree. It doesn't come from. It's not petroleum. What the olive tree does is it consecrates, it sanctifies. Think of what happens when a king was installed. And in the case of King David, he was anointed with olive oil that came from the olive tree, and that made him receive the Spirit of God. And actually all the utensils, everything that is being used in the temple is sanctified by anointing it. And also when then the priests are consecrated, are installed in the temple, they're being sanctified by being anointed with olive oil. But I could take you then in and show passages where olive oil is medicine. So the olive tree makes healthy, There are people who believe today in taking olive leaves and making a tea of it. It doesn't taste very good. But anyway, the olive tree, that's now much better, makes rich. And actually olives or the olive oil was used as money, was used as tax. Olive trees are standing for fertility, for wealth, for luxury, for blessing. If a land is fat, if it's a good land, it's a land full of olive trees. So the olive tree is a sign of blessing. If Paul compares Israel with an olive tree, and that's what we Gentiles have to remind ourselves. He says it's abundant blessing. The olive tree makes cheerful. It's the king among the trees. And I won't go into it now. You can check it yourself. Where was it used as building material in the temple? It was used, the leaves were used to build the tabernacles, the Sukkot, on the Feast of Tabernacles. The olive leaf is a sign of life and of the possibility of existence. Just think of the dove that Noah sent out. What did she bring back to him, or he bring back to him? In his beak, a branch of an olive tree. So the olive tree gives hope. And I want to remind you that in the emblem, in the coat of armor of the modern state of Israel, you have these two olive branches. And in the middle, the menorah, which is lightened by olive oil. So I just want to remind you here how central in all this thinking, in all this talking, is an olive tree. Actually, I could have told you all that I've told you about Paul and about this theology, just saying, look at the olive tree and you'll understand.